How the fuck did we get here? Gamergate might have been going on for 8 months, but for me it's been about 5 years of this same culture war battle going on. And looking back, it's hard to understand how the fuck I've ended up in this position, because I'm on the left. I agree with LGBT rights, I agree with minority rights, all this stuff that is loosely the SJW agenda is stuff that I agree with and believe in. So how the fuck have I ended up branded as some kind of right-wing reactionary fuckwit? And it makes little sense to me looking back. I spend a lot of time thinking about this and trying to figure out where the disconnect is, where the conflict is, where it is that I've fallen out with these people, and it's really hard to identify. And I think it comes down to the fact that I value individual freedom higher than they do, and they value people's comfort more than I do. I see the greater ill in what they're suggesting as approaches and ways of dealing with these problems. I see greater problems in that. And I see more of a role for personal responsibility, and that seems to be where it comes. I mean, I've been involved in atheism and skepticism for years and years and years, so when the Atheism Plus thing came along, that was that. Tabletop gaming I've been involved in, and we've had issues with these same kinds of people long before Gamergate. Comics, I've been into comics since I was knee-high to an Ewok, and we've seen the problems there as well, and it's the same thing. It's the long march through the geekdoms, and each step, I've grown more and more pissed off with these people, and more willing to stand up to them, and less willing to be shut up by being abused and called a misogynist or a sexist or a racist or whatever else, because these things are just basically unfucking true, and that's an end to it. But I still, looking back, I look at where I am now, look at where I was then in like 2010 or whenever, and it's really hard to believe that the space and the gap that's incrementally built up over that time, and the disdain and the hate that some of these people have for me just doesn't make sense. And it bothers me, because I really try to be a good person, a good guy, to do the right thing, and part of the reason I'm so stubborn and I stick to my guns is because I am so obsessed with doing the right thing and being the good guy and doing what's right, or what's good for the majority of people. So to be accused of these things does really it does get to me. Maybe I shouldn't say that, because that's fuel to the fire, feeds the trolls, whatever, but it's true. Less and less true over time as I get inured to these insults and accusations, but it's still true. So up until about 2010, I would have said, if you'd asked me, that I was a feminist, because I believed in equality, and yet here I am now appearing on MHRA podcasts and streams, and up to my eyeballs in Gamergate, trying to make the same arguments elsewhere. Getting products banned from outlets, all these kind of things happening, and it's hard to see how you get from one point to another. But this is an aspect of the greater culture war, I guess. When conservatives want to damn me with faint praise, they call me a classical liberal or an old liberal, because I hold these liberal values of freedom of expression, and personal freedom to be so innately valuable, whereas people who are using the term liberal to describe themselves these days seem much more authoritarian. They seem to want to put their stamp on everything. They want to control what everyone else does, whereas for me it's about freedom. I still believe that reality does have a left-wing bias. We are a social species. We do better when we cooperate with each other. We do better when we work together rather than when we compete. I don't believe in unfettered capitalism, but equally I don't believe in an unfettered state. I don't think the state is the best solution for everything. I often describe myself as being an ideological anarchist, but a pragmatic socialist, and by socialist I mean democratic socialism. So to find myself amongst all these libertarians and right-wingers and so on, and to feel at home and comfortable and accepted in that company has been a real shock to the system. But that's another aspect of this. I don't think that I have to agree with everybody on every single detail. I don't even have to agree with someone on anything in order to be able to discuss with them, talk with them, and get along. I think the best solution to these things is discussion. And because I think reality has a left-wing bias, I think the best way to promote my interpretation of left liberal politics is to argue on facts and statistics and to experimentation and to say, look, let's look at this, what's the objective truth here, I'm sure it will support my point of view. And if it doesn't, I'm willing to recant that. I don't see that on the other side. There is a demand for absolute and total agreement on everything. That's what killed Occupy. It started out as a very broad-based group that included libertarians and right-wingers and so on, who just happened to be anti-corporate, didn't believe corporations were people, were against Citizens United, thought the banks were screwing people over, and they were right. But then these kind of same activists that we see in gaming, tabletop, comics, everything else come in, and they start demanding that everyone agree with all this other shit as well. And while some of their ideas may have been worthwhile, it just ends up dividing and subdividing and dividing and dividing and dividing what was a broad-based, broadly appealing movement into a bunch of kooks. You start up with this massive thing that the only equivalent I can think of was the poll tax protests in the UK that eventually toppled Thatcher. And you end up with someone called Yogurt appearing on a TV show and looking like an absolute idiot, talking about kind of esoteric, way out there radical feminist nonsense that just ends up putting people off and ends up dividing the movement into nothing, down to nothing. So I don't know. I still don't get it. I don't understand my friends who have cut me off or backed away or disagree with Gamergate, because who on earth could be against ethical journalism and who on earth could be for censorship? But they don't see it that way. They see the false narrative that's been constructed of the abuse and so on. And maybe some of them don't understand internet culture, and that's fair enough. But they know me, and they should understand that I would not participate in that sort of thing. And so that, I feel, should give them pause. And I am so disappointed with fellow creators, writers, artists, and so on, who have lined up against the movement and against me and have cut me off and cut me out of these things, because this movement, even more broadly this movement, this sort of countercharge against this postmodernist, pseudo-activist, pseudo-feminists, because I'm deciding to call them that, pseudo, because I know real feminists who are great people and are fighting for good causes, such as abortion provision in Ireland and things like that. These are great people. They are not problem people. They are not trying to shut anyone else up. They are genuinely trying to forward people's rights, and these are good things. So that divides them from the social justice warriors, the pseudo-activists, the swine, as Pundit would put it. I'm just so disappointed in them. I just can't understand, because it's not a leadered movement. What makes this movement up? And again, the broader movement, the broader countercharge against this postmodernist bullshit. What characterises it is who's in it. So if you don't like it as it is, or as you perceive it to be, the way to change it is to join it and to be what you want it to be. That's what I try to do. I try to be a moderating voice. I try to focus on the issues. I try to stay involved. And I think it's really important. I have a personal investment in this, because as a creator, I want to be free to make whatever the fuck I want, within the bounds of possibility. And that doesn't seem to me to be such a bad goal. So why are people so dead set against it? I don't don't understand. I don't understand how I've got here. I don't understand how I've ended up being labelled all these things. I don't understand how anybody that is a friend of mine can see themselves being against this stuff. How they can see themselves being for censorship. You know, the answer to me is always more art. If you don't like the Batgirl cover, start your own comic with all the representations that you like, or ask for another artist to do another version. If you don't like a computer game, make your own. If you don't like a tabletop game, make your own. If you don't like a picture, make your own. If you don't like a book, make your own. That's the way to change things, is to participate, to add to the conversation, not to try and take away other people's capability to say something, because in the end you only end up taking away your own capability to say or do something, to create, to produce. I don't get it. I do not understand. And looking back, I can't see how I got to this position except by incremental steps, and I don't see anything bad in anything I've done at any stage. You know, I like sexual expression. You don't. Fair enough. That doesn't make me the devil. I like horror. I like dealing with difficult and controversial subjects. That doesn't mean I condone the things that happen in these books. You know, if I am a rape apologist because I defend the use of rape or other horrible things happening in books, then the writer of The Handmaid's Tale is a rapist, because that happens to their characters. They're not just discussing the possibility, you know? It doesn't make any kind of internal sense. I don't see how standing up for freedom, free creativity and so on is a bad thing, or can be a bad thing. You know, if you want to stop people expressing themselves, you need a good justifiable reason, and the only good and justifiable reason is the harm principle. So until you can show that there's harm, shut up and fuck off and make your own thing. You know, add to the market, don't take away from it. You know, it's hard to reconcile this public image I seem to have acquired as some sort of reactionary, conservative, sexist, racist, whatever you want to call it. It's hard to reconcile that with what I actually think and believe, and what I do. And so few people bother to actually ask what you think and what you believe, or why you do what you do, and they won't even have the decency to believe you when you tell them. So I don't know. I'm just, after 8 months of Gamergate and 5 years of fighting this battle in various incarnations, it's a very strange experience to look back. So I guess I just want to warn you all that this may be a longer fight than you were anticipating, and it may not be a fight that will ever actually stop. Peace out.